Rotary to come up and introduce our guest speaker.
Well, each year we try and get somebody here from the city of Lacey to kind of update what's going on in the city. And today we have Ryan Andrews. He's going to update us on the Lacey Comprehensive Plan. I'm going to tell you a little bit about Ryan. Some of you may remember him from last year when we talked about sign ordinance. He's a planning manager for the city of Lacey, where he's been for over 10 years now. In that time, he's worked on a variety of long-range planning issues, including comprehensive planning, regulation, and code development, and sub-area planning, including project management on the city's Woodland District Strategic Plan, which won a Governor's Smart Communities Award. He also worked on the implementation of the city's vision through managing often complex land use permitting projects and development. Brings to this position experience in county and small town planning in Western Washington because he previously worked for Thurston County and the city of Westport. He's a graduate of Washington State University with a degree in landscape architecture. So let's welcome Ryan. He's going to update us on what's going on in the city of Lacey.
See if we don't knock the bell over.
Let's try it. Got it?
Well, thank you for, can everybody hear me in the back? Yeah. These microphones aren't made for the tallest of people, that's for sure. So thank you again for the Rotary Club for having me. This is a presentation that we've been giving across the community for the last few months. It's related to an update of our comprehensive plan. And our comprehensive plan for the city is our long-range planning document that kind of sets forth how the city will grow. We're a fast-growing community. It's very important that we get this right. So we're checking in with community groups along the way to make sure that we did. So what I'll do is I'll give about a 15 to 20 minute presentation. And then if you have questions at the end, comments, we'd love to hear from you. And as being a city planner, if you have general concerns or questions about the city, I'd be happy to take those. I'd like to tell people, as a city planner, my knowledge about the city is a mile wide, but it's about an inch deep. So I'll try to do my best to answer those. So why update our comprehensive plan and why envision Lacey? Well, first of all, as I mentioned, we're a very fast-growing community. Our city and our urban growth area, and I'll talk a little bit about what our urban growth area is here in a little bit. It's basically the area surrounding Lacey is projected to grow by 30,000 people in the next 20 years. We last did this calculation back in 1998, and we missed that number by about 80 people. So it's an extremely accurate number, that 30,000 people, so they're going to come. We need to plan for them. We also have a mandatory update deadline of June 30th, 2016. The State Growth Management Act requires that we update our comprehensive plan every 8 years, and that date is fast approaching. So in the next 20 years, we do have 30,000 additional residents, but we also are expected to have 13,700 more jobs and 12,500 new homes. So where will they all go? And then we also periodically update our comprehensive plan to make sure it's in line in keeping with the community's vision. So feedback is really important at this point to help determine how we accommodate that growth. This has been a multi-year process. We're nearing the end of the process right now. It started in 2013 with a community discussion and development of a vision. We're now in the outreach phase, which I know it says 2015 there, but now we're into 2016, which is leading up to the refinement and adoption of this comprehensive plan. And as I mentioned, June 30th, 2016 is our state mandated deadline to have this updated. So we're nearing the end of this process. You'll see in the presentation there's a lot of information there as far as how the community perceives how we should grow. So we want to make sure that at this point if we got that right. So given that we're nearing build out of the city, so our city from north to south is nearing build out. So on the north end we've got Jubilee. On the south end we have Horizon Point, and everywhere in between is essentially built out. So we're going to accommodate this population in a bunch of different ways and have that job growth that goes along with it. And We do this by providing a balance of land use activities, promoting the overall quality of life, while protecting environmentally sensitive areas to make Lacey a great place to live, work, shop, and play. So how do we do this? First, in talking about our quality of life, ensuring our full range of employment, housing, educational, shopping, and recreational opportunities are available, so Lacey residents don't have to leave Lacey for these needs. We often hear from residents that they can't do some of the day-to-day things they need to do without leaving our city limits. The other part of this is to make sure that our workforce and our workforce of tomorrow receive education and training by working with our high schools, St. Martin's University, South Puget Sound Community College, to make sure that our programs are matched with in-demand skills. JBLM is an important partner with the city, especially through our South Sound Military Communities Partnership. We need to make sure as a community that we're providing housing, business, and recreation needs for those that are maybe active duty veterans or their families. Economic development is a very important part of what the city does. It's how the city pays its bills. A great amount of that is through our sales tax revenue. In fact, it's such a priority that we hired an economic development coordinator to help promote and diversify employment and economic development opportunities in the city. As part of this comprehensive plan update, we're also updating our economic development element of our comp plan, which has not been updated since 1994. So we're in the midst of doing that. As part of the update, we completed a large market study. We also went out to the community and asked what were some of the prime businesses, restaurants, those kinds of things that the city wanted to, or the residents wanted to see the city kind of attract. We did complete this market study that shows that we have some leakage going on. So I don't think it's any secret that we lose out on some large ticket items, especially car dealerships. And this is related to those high dollar value car sales that our neighbors in Olympia are able to capture, but not us here in Lacey. So to put this into context, like I mentioned, we completed the market study, a retail preference survey, community input that's going to help inform our draft economic development element, which then leads to the action behind this, which is our economic development strategy and work plan. What we found so far through this process is that we have a good, solid retail base, but we do have room to grow. And our room to grow is really related to those high dollar value items. We have a high concentration of discount retail, so we have the Walmarts, the Costco's, those kinds of places, but we don't have the upmarket retail. We don't even have the space for the upmarket retail to go. So a lot of times we hear people say there was a priority in the market study that showed that Nordstrom's comes to mind as something that the community wants to see come to our area, but we don't have the space for Nordstrom's to locate. But the good news is we do have in our workforce, we have a high education attainment, and those demographics for our workforce are really in demand by job providers. Important aspect of our Envision Lacey, our comprehensive plan update, is how we identify and promote our neighborhoods. To provide a community of diverse and vibrant neighborhoods that contain a mixture of uses, a variety of housing types, convenient commercial opportunities, schools, parks, and open spaces. Excuse me. We're doing this by ensuring we have a mixture of housing types, especially in our moderate and higher density areas, by looking at increasing the minimum densities in these zones. The city is largely built out in the last 10 to 15 years, but we've really developed out with those single family residences. We've had a very low percentage of multifamily development, so we want to make sure that we get a good mix of all housing types. Requiring sewer to all new development to increase density, protect groundwater resources, and ensure land supply is developed to high standards. It's really important in the county where we still allow new development to go on septic systems. Providing an opportunity for residents to live near commercial areas, which will decrease the everyday need for a vehicle. So it's important to get these commercial areas in close proximity to where people live. So this slide shows a couple things. The first is kind of how we lay out as a city. As I mentioned, we go from kind of the north end on Puget Sound, which is Jubilee, to the south end near the railroad tracks down at Horizon Point. Everything that's multicolored on that map is within our city limits. We have a fairly illogical city limit boundary. The rest that's in yellow is our urban growth area, and that's the area that's not actually within city jurisdiction. It's actually in Thurston County. but we do project growth, and they do have similar land use regulations that pertain within that area. Long story short, if you live in the city, then you get permits from the city. If you don't, you go to Thurston County to get your permit, but we plan for these areas in conjunction. What our comprehensive plan looks at is some priority areas of development. So we have kind of two different stories. One is the city, which is pretty much developed out, but we also have the urban growth area, which still has some vacant land resources. So with our 30,000 people, we have about 10,000 of those coming to our city limits. We have 20,000 coming to our urban growth area. And in 20 years, our urban growth area will actually have a bigger population than what our city limits have. So some of the ways to look at handling some of this development are these key priority areas that we're looking at increasing the development in. The first is the Martin Way corridor, which is A on the map. Also B, our Woodland District, Central Business District, and our gateway areas. These are some of our prime nodes right in Lacey. And then also look at amending our zones within the urban growth area to make sure that they're being developed at their highest and best use. And we're not allowing septic and those kinds of things that preclude higher density development. So this is just keying in on one of those concepts, which is related to Martin Way. The comp plan for Lacey envisions that Martin Way will be a vibrant, dense urban center. One of these keys is to achieving this type of development is to look at our urban transit corridors and making sure they're used to their fullest potential. Martin Way has good transit. It's served by intercity transit, and it has 15-minute transit headways. So it also has well-served infrastructure and those kinds of things that can have more intense development, especially than what it does right now. In fact, it only has right now has about 85 acres of vacant property available for building and redevelopment. So it's a key area to get more intensive, both commercial and residential development. Some of the advantages to doing this is it conserves that land in the urban growth area. So it increases density in areas where transit and those kinds of things, utilities can handle that, preserves vacant land resources, especially in our urban growth area. It's transit oriented, it has good infrastructure that has lowered maintenance costs and is less expensive to serve. It also would provide an affordable and broad range of housing choices to serve a broad range of needs. And it can also support commercial activity, which gets those residents in close proximity to the retail. It's important that we consider placemaking in our comprehensive plan by creating vibrant urban and neighborhood centers that support a broad range of commercial destinations, housing options, and employment opportunities. How do we get there? Well, we support our sub-area plans. We have two sub-area plans existing. One is our Woodland District, which is the area around South Sound Center and Fred Meyer has been identified as a city center. And then our Northeast area sub-area plan, which is our gateway area. And then also identify and support future plans, including our Depot District. The Depot District is the area around the Lacey Post Office, where the future Depot Museum will go. Also the Martin Way corridor, and what we call the Golf Club Road neighborhood, which is the area basically between Pacific and Panorama that has some more older housing stock that could see some redevelopment in the near future. So our comprehensive plan provides general patterns for land use and those kinds of things, but what these sub-area plans do is they provide more detail than what we're able to get into in our comprehensive plans. So this creates a good transition, and it identifies how the city will transition to ensure that high quality development is achieved. We also provide a mix of uses close to neighborhoods to enhance their character, desirability, functionality, and reduce the dependency on everyday use of a vehicle. Encourage where feasible mixed uses that integrate ground floor commercial within the same building as residential. Transportation is another important component about how we accommodate this population as we grow. So we ensure that we have a coordinated street system that encourages all modes of transportation, including transit, pedestrians, bicyclists, and vehicles. We're not saying everybody needs to get rid of their vehicles. I think that's obvious that we are a community that we are built on our major arterials and corridors, but demographics are showing, especially younger people, want more transportation choices. We can also do this by encouraging more mixed-use development, increasing density, housing types, and utilize our flexible parking requirements. So right now, the city has what we call flexible parking requirements. So if somebody particularly a developer came in, wanted to do a project and wanted to go below our minimum threshold for parking, they'd be able to do that, provided that they were served by transit or had other means of accommodating their traveling residents. The city would develop, it's a future action item for the city to develop a pedestrian and bicycle plan. Right now, the city does not have a pedestrian or bicycle plan. And it's important that we do so that we can show how our pedestrians travel through Lacey. We do have a transportation plan, but that's mostly related to automobile and freight movement through Lacey. Also, to encourage intercity transit to extend regular bus service to our Hawks Prairie planning area, and also reassess service routes to serve growing employment centers and residential neighborhoods. And we work closely with intercity transit on a regular basis, but one thing they do not provide is regular transit service, essentially north of I-5 in Lacey. So we have Lacey residents right now that have no transit service, and there's no plans to extend that. So we're working closely with intercity transit to make sure that this is a priority with them. Especially now that we've got these growing employment and residential neighborhoods up in our northeast area. Talking a little bit about, a lot of people like to have these uses, these neighborhood commercial type uses in close proximity to where they live. This is a graphic that shows in order to do that, you really have to have density. So for a neighborhood commercial scale retailer, this graphic shows that within a half-mile radius, you have to have about 3,500 units to make that supportable. So that's at a density that far exceeds what Lacey is able to achieve right now. So some of our neighborhood commercial areas have been stagnant for a long time, and they haven't been constructed because we lack the density that it takes, the rooftops that it takes to be able to support them. We do this with the environment in mind by preserving and enhancing the natural environment to reflect the quality of life that we all associate with the Pacific Northwest. We protect our urban forest resources through our urban forest management plan that makes sure as we grow that our urban forest canopy is retained. That we also amend our development code to make sure that we have a 200-foot buffer around all sides of Woodland Creek. Right now there are certain areas of Lacey that Woodland Creek does not have the same protection. And then also adopting our carbon reduction and resiliency plan to reduce our carbon dioxide emissions. So what this CR2 plan is that it's a plan that shows how by 2020, Lacey as a community will reduce our emissions 15% below our 2005 level. We've already done that related to our municipal operations, but we have not done that as a community as a whole. So we went out to the community this last summer and asked, what are these high priority items as far as how we can reduce carbon dioxide emissions in our community? I'm not going to read every one of them, but these are some of the ideas that the community came up with as far as their highest priorities in order to reduce our carbon dioxide footprint. Looking at agricultural lands that are in our urban growth area and making sure that they are zoned appropriately. Agricultural lands are designated usually for our rural areas and not within our urban growth area where that area is supposed to densify and intensify in development. Also looking at reviewing our criteria of new mineral resource lands to make sure that we're assessing potential conflicts and impacts to adjacent urbanized areas, critical areas, and redevelopment opportunities. Utilities is an important aspect of this, so we need to make sure that within Lacey and our urban growth area that we have water and sewer that's able to serve growth but also protect groundwater and ensure that development occurs at an urban level. So one of the policies is that all new development in the urban growth area is to be served by sewer, and that we require septic systems that have failed to city sewer. That second part of that, requiring septic systems that have failed, is not a new policy. It's a reaffirmation of that. Also, utilities are important when the city considers annexation of our urban growth area, so making sure that our urban growth area, when we do annex portions of that it's fully served by sewer, so that the city doesn't take on the liabilities associated with converting properties to sewer after they're annexed. Also looking at exploring urban holding areas within our Pleasant Glade and McAllister geologic sensitive areas. These are areas that are slated to be developed within our urban growth area, but they lack sewer, and it doesn't look like sewer is going to become available to them in the next 20 years based on the ability of the city to be able to support that. So look at potentially removing those areas from our urban growth area until the time that the sewer becomes available. So what do you think? These strategies have been developed by the community as part of a multi-year strategy. However, we want your feedback and input to make sure we got things right. Are there other ways to accommodate this growth that you'd like to see, and do you have any suggestions? That's where you come in. So this, as I mentioned, the comp plan will be finalized and go through the Planning Commission review, then adoption by the City Council right around the summer of 2016. There is our URL, so our draft comp plans, all these different ideas and things that I put out on the screen are available in our draft comprehensive plan, which is available on the city's website, at our city's website, and then /Envision Lacey for anybody who'd like to take a look at those. So what do you think? Yeah, happy to take any questions or comments. Yeah.
A question, in terms of strategic development and quality of life, I didn't hear anything about parks, arts, or cultural centers in this. Is that a separate program?
It is, yeah, and Lori Flem, your Rotary member, is our Parks Department Director, and we have a separate comprehensive plan just for that, and it's called our Comprehensive Plan for Outdoor Recreation. And that is not being updated with this process, so we do have a plan that oversees how the city will grow, level of service related to parks and open spaces and those kinds of things as well.
I would encourage that the city look at it not just in terms of park, but arts and cultural centers to attract people, add to the quality of life. Cool.
Good idea.
There's a lot of dirt moving and stuff going on Britton Parkway. Can you explain what some of those are?
Sure. So somebody asked me about that earlier. So on Britton Parkway, we have south of Britton Parkway, adjacent to Miles Sand and Gravel. That is basically apartments, multifamily residential. I'm not exactly, I want to say in the neighborhood of about 300 multifamily units on that. On the opposite side of Britton Parkway, so on the north side of Britton Parkway, is single-family residential. So those are some single-family residential subdivisions. And then the Nisqually tribe, which owns a bunch of property in that area, they own a piece, the old gas station that's across from the Mayan is, they tore the gas station down. The building, that's in tribal trust land now, so that's kind of their own sovereign property. They are developing that as a drive-through tobacco espresso type thing. Yeah.
Any plans that you might be aware of for the properties surrounding Cabela's out there? I know Mr. Devo had these big plans, but that all kind of went away.
Trevo, yeah. Yeah, so that property is all owned by the Nisqually tribe. They are partnering with a private development group that is preparing an application to develop that as a future town center. It's called the Gateway Town Center. So it will be kind of a neo-traditional, not a downtown, it'll be a town center type development. It will also have about 500 units of residential and a shopping center component as well. It's very early in the process right now. They're doing some of the environmental work and some of that stuff. So there's nothing that I can point to as far as when they would break ground or anything like that. But that's the plans at this point.
There's two things. One is that property owned by the tribe could go off the tax roll, so that may not do us citizens any good except for a place to shop. Secondly, I think the city's done a really good job of the planning and what they've done. I do have a concern in that all the growth that's going on north end of Marvin, those three roundabouts were all built too small for all the traffic and all the trucks, the industrial and the residential. I didn't see anything here about readdressing that. And secondly, in that construction, we have all these medians, which are beautiful, but you can't see. And so it's horrible driving out there trying to cross roads.
Yeah.
So is there any activity and discussion doing that? Before I leave it, one last thing. I think we ought to license bicyclists who use the roadway.
So it's a little bit more specificity than I'm able to get into as far as like a citywide growth plan. There's a couple things going on in Hawks Prairie. First of all, the city got an $80 million, as part of the recent transportation bill that passed the legislature, we got $80 million to improve the exit 111 interchange. So that's gonna be a massive project that's under development right now. Probably will be installed in the next 5 years to help alleviate some of the congestion at the overpass. So we get a lot of complaints about traffic backing up on both sides of that interchange. So that's a big project that's going to be happening in the near future. Also, you talked about the trucks that have some of the moving conflicts. One of the things that will be installed here in the next little bit is a truck dedicated route that would take trucks as they're traveling southbound off I-5, take them on their own dedicated route kind of behind the Mayan, so they would actually get off the off-ramp, go behind the Mayan, and then up Hogan Bay into the industrial area. So that's gonna take some of the trucks off the road. And then also associated with the Gateway property, there will be some dedicated lanes that would go directly from this new interchange directly into the Gateway property. So those, I agree with you, those roundabouts are not sized to handle the kind of traffic, but there's alternate routes. So with Hawkesbury is not built out as far as the transportation system goes yet. So some of those improvements will be installed here in the near future that will help alleviate some of those concerns.
In the medians, can we get low?
I'll make a note of that and pass that along to our transportation people.
It's horrible.
A lot of it is, the council, when those details were made, prioritized that they look nicer than what anybody else was doing. And I'll point to a specific example, which is the roundabout at, I think it's Marvin and Pacific, or Marvin and Pacific, which is just basically a brick pattern in the middle of a roundabout. It's just kind of nothing there. The council saw that at the time and said, we don't want that. We want to have our roundabouts be some kind of amenity. So there's somewhat of a prioritization there that the city's made kind of a policy that we want these things to look really nice, so people understand that they're in Lacey, they're not in Thurston County, they're not in somewhere else anymore when they come in Lacey.
Not just the roundabout median, but the roadway median out there.
Right.
The shrubbery's too high.
Gotcha.
Can't see.
Yeah, pass that along.
What about the bicycles?
License of bicycles?
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll talk to the police chief about that one.
Are there plans for a roundabout at Carpenter and Mullen?
Yeah, there is. So that's going to be a county project that's in development right now. There was a recent open house for that area about 2 weeks ago. They held an open house to go over some of the designs with the residents in that area. I don't have any graphics here with me, but basically what it would do is it would take some property in front of the little grocery store that's right there, and some of the property that the city has purchased in the area, convert that to a roundabout and help alleviate some of those turning movement issues that we have down there. That's probably a few years out from construction though.
On that same roundabout that will be installed, will there be flashing lights for kids crossing to Woodland? Because I know they mentioned in the announcement that that's a big issue, people speeding, and the kids that are crossing from that neighborhood who attend Woodland. Is that being addressed?
I don't know the specifics enough to know. I don't know if they're even far enough along in the design process, but I would assume that it's going to probably be very similar to what's on Rainier Road at Horizons Elementary. So you've got those push buttons that are activated by their traffic control people that would actually activate and let people know that they're there. I don't know if they're that far along, but I would assume that's what it's going to look like.
We're actually exit off I-5 onto Carpenter, I know that in years past was talked about, but is 111 now going to be the main focus?
Yeah, 111 is the main focus. So the city, as part of that exit 111 interchange study, studied the off-ramp at Carpenter Road. That study basically, so the federal government has to approve it because it's an interchange off their federal highway system, and they basically nixed any kind of interchange at Carpenter Road. The reason being is that they weren't convinced that local people don't use the interstate to interchange hop. So they think, well, until you've got your road system fully built out, don't come to us trying to alleviate your local traffic concerns. So what they don't want to see is people getting off or getting on the interstate at exit 111, getting right back off on Carpenter Road. So I would say it's, maybe it would happen in my lifetime, but not in the near future. Yes.
Of the 30,000 people that are expected to move in, and I think you said the next 20 years.
Yeah.
From an economic development standpoint, where are those people expected? Do you have a sense of where they'll be working? Are they expected to be working in Lacey, or are they going to become commuters?
A mixture of both. We do have a market analysis that shows, you know, what we've got is we have a very, at least in Lacey, a very service-based economy. So we've got, you know, the retail jobs and those kinds of things, but what we don't have is we don't have those big, you know, the Intels and those kinds of things that provide those, you know, family wage jobs. So our focus is really on those family wage jobs and how do we get people that might locate elsewhere to come here. The good thing is we do have an attractive employment base that's fairly well skilled, especially coming out of JVLM. So what we're trying to do is, through our economic development coordinator, his task is actually to go out and recruit some of these people to come to our area. The good thing is we have a lower cost of living than Seattle. We have, you know, lower per square footage rents than Seattle. So what we're trying to do is find those nuggets that might be out there. Somebody that may be looking to locate in Seattle, but we can convince them to come to Lacey, maybe help push them over the top. Right. So service-based jobs, at least in the short term, is what we see until we get some of these, you know, other things happening.
Last question from Kim.
Are there plans to install sewers to the homes along Carpenter Road?
Specifically, what part of Carpenter Road? Carpenter Road's pretty long.
Montebello?
Montebello, no, not Montebello. One of the priority areas, maybe it'll come back on, is around our area lakes. So like Hicks Lake in the area of Montebello, Hicks Lake doesn't have a lot of sewer service yet. So what you might see first is the city install sewer around Hicks Lake. That's going to be our first priority area before we serve someplace like Montebello. So yeah, not any short-term plans to do that. Our short-term plans are more about protecting water quality around our lakes. So it's going to be probably, if it's going to come to your area or Montebello, it's going to be around Hicks Lake first.
Okay. Very good. So, as is our tradition, we offer up a book to South Sound Reading Foundation that we have the presenter sign. And today's book, I pulled out of Greg's book box of treasures. The only thing I could find that reasonably is relevant: City Dog and County Frog.